Have you ever felt so stuck that you thought taking your own life was the only way out? Or would you go on to the bitter end and die in the misery that you were currently living in? That was me 10 years ago. Hey, I'm Mark here with the Hiller Group, brokered by eXp Realty, and thanks to a decision I made 10 years ago, I have an awesome real estate team here along the beautiful Florida Emerald Coast. My team and I have you covered from Pensacola all the way through Panama City. So what's the deal? Well, 10 years ago, I made a decision. I made a decision to change my life. I had been in a 22-year alcoholic haze, alcoholic addiction that basically had ruined my life. I was drinking to live and living to drink on a daily basis. I couldn't differentiate the truth from the false. I was living in a delusional world, and ultimately, how I changed that, how I changed the narrative of my life was the day I got fired. It was the best day of my life. Most people would hate the day they're fired, and honestly, the day I got fired was the day my life was saved. So shout out to Galati Yacht Sales. Thank you for saving my life. But what does that mean? Like, getting fired saved your life? Well, for some weird reason, that day I got fired, I was sitting there in the office, and the second they said I was no longer employable, that was enough for me. I was done digging my own grave. It was time for me to get out of that and make a decision to change the trajectory of my life. And I did that. And I've told this story tons of times over the years to try to help other people who are feeling the same way. But I felt at that point there was an anvil lifted off my chest and I could breathe because I felt like there was maybe a way out. And that way out was going to rehab. So within 2 days, I checked myself into rehab. My wife drove me there. And note to self, and note to everyone else out there, if you are trying to come off of heavy alcohol abuse, they tell you to don't stop. Don't just stop cold turkey or try to before you get to rehab. Like, they told me to keep drinking till I got there so they could put me on some medication. So there's your little tidbit. But I drank for 2 days, like, before they could get me in there. And it was crazy because I knew it was the end, and it was like I was giving up my best friend. Alcohol was there with me for 22 years. It was who I turned to for help. And it offered no help, but it kept kicking me down. But I was too helpless to see it, right? I was too addicted. I was too fixed on the next fix, if you will. You know, alcohol in the early years gave me what I felt was freedom. It made me come out of my skin a little bit and kind of be a little less introverted, a little more extroverted, act a little bit crazier, and be what I thought was more social, right? Because I was kind of a more quiet type person, and really alcohol made me feel different, right? And that's what I was chasing all those years when I kept drinking. I was looking for that original quick buzz that I got, from the first time I drank. And after a while, that went away. And then it was just caught in that rut on day-to-day activity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It was pure insanity. And when you're in it, when you're trapped in it, you don't know any better. You don't know any different. That's the only normal life. Especially when I started drinking at such a young age, I didn't know life without alcohol. I used it to cope. I used it to celebrate. I used it for everything. It was just a numbing lubrication for me, I guess. I did it to celebrate. I did it to drown my sorrows. It was there when no one else was. And it was who I turned to on a daily basis. Now, going to rehab, scary, because I knew if I put my mind to it, I could come out the other end, but I thought maybe I'd be able to drink again once they taught me how in rehab, but that's not really what they do in there. They don't teach you how to drink. They teach you how not to drink and how to enjoy life without drinking. But, when I first got in there, I thought for sure I was going to learn how to drink responsibly because that's what I had lost. I had lost the ability to drink like others, like normal human beings. And ultimately, it was in rehab where I found out that I was never going to be able to drink normal because I had an allergy. I was allergic to alcohol. Just like some people, you get poison ivy and you break out in a rash. Well, for alcoholics, they drink alcohol and they break out in wanting more. And that's where that addiction catches in, and that craving, that constant craving for more alcohol. You know, in that last 6 months of my drinking was just pure hell. Every day I'd wake up and have to drink before I went to work. And then it got to be I couldn't even wait till after work. I'd have to leave work early. And I was a horrible employee. I was horrible, but I was pretty good at what I did. So that's why I was able to kind of hide it, or people overlooked it for years with me, because I'm a likable guy. I wasn't a real mean drunk. I was always in a kind of a happy mood until the end. Till the end, it was like, it was not good. And it was because I'd been drinking since 6 o'clock every morning, and by 5 o'clock at night, like, I was tired. And I was newly married and had a wife, and we were trying to go out and do normal things, and I could never do normal things. My life consisted of drinking and going to the bar, and that was it. So I put my wife through pure hell. She is an absolute saint for sticking with me through all of the pain and anguish I put her through. So honey, thank you. I love you. Back to rehab. So in rehab, I learned that I was trying to fill a hole that I had in my soul. I was thinking alcohol was going to fix some things I had deep inside me. But it wasn't until I let those things deep inside me get out and put them in the past and forget about them, forgive myself, forgive others. That wasn't until then that like my life could start moving forward. Fun fact, if you're going into rehab, check your insurance, because they tried to kick me out after like 25 days because we ran out of money, but like I was like, nope, I'm staying more. So we ended up paying some extra money just so I could stay the full 30 days because I knew I needed it. But in rehab, I'll never forget this, talking with my wife on the phone after a couple days being in there, and she's like, something's different. Something's different with you. I can hear it in your voice. There's something different going on. And it was the fact that I learned that I wasn't alone. When you are in the grips of alcoholism or any other addiction and you're at the bottom, like, you don't think there's other people like you. You don't want to admit you have an issue, but you also deep down know something's wrong, but you feel like you're the only person, so therefore like no one's gonna understand. And there I was, trapped in this rehab center with other people who felt just like me. So for anybody out there who's struggling, anybody who's got a family member who's struggling, that's why the group, the talking with another addict or another alcoholic, that's why it works. Because it makes people feel like they're not alone, and there's something's not wrong with them. That there is a solution out there. And once I realized that there was a solution, and I started talking and seeing people that had been sober for periods of time, I realized, you know what, that could be me. I can beat this thing. Little did I know at the time, you don't beat it, you accept it. I accept that alcoholism is a part of me. It will be there forever. But I've also learned how to deal with life on life's terms. I've learned how to be happy being okay, right? I have what they call, I like to be on like this balance beam, right? Where my highs ain't too high and my lows ain't too low. And I know ain't a word. But my highs aren't too high and my lows aren't too low. It's more of a balance, keeping the flow going, right? Do I have setbacks? Absolutely, like anybody else. And you know what? Early on, those setbacks, there was a lot of fear in taking steps for me. Because I was afraid of rejection, I was afraid of failure, and I was afraid of going back to the only thing I knew, and that was drinking. So I took kind of baby steps to get back on my feet. Had a couple little job things here and there, and none of it really panned out, and then I got into the real estate thing. Luckily, had an awesome mentor, my father, for the first 5 or so years to kind of help get me going. But those first 90 days after getting out of rehab, those were critical, because that was what built new habits for me and a new life for me. I was dealing with life on life's terms. I had to learn all the things that I missed on those 22 years while I was drinking. Because what I learned while I was in rehab is when you start drinking, technically is when you stop growing as maturity level as an adult, as an alcoholic. So basically, here I was, a 36-year-old, 15-year-old. And there's some truth to that. I had a lot of learning, a lot of trash that was in my past to clean up. Worked on that, worked on me, found a group of other alcoholics that I could hang out with, visit with regularly, and realized that hanging out with them was exactly where I needed to be, because that's who I was. I was definitely an alcoholic. There was no more questioning. There was no more, I'm a functional alcoholic. I was no longer functioning properly. So those first 90 days seemed like an eternity, but literally that's what built the foundation for me to have the most unbelievable life I could imagine today, right? Again, my highs aren't too high, my lows aren't too low. That's helped me with my business. That's helped me with my wife at home. That's helped me with my relationships with other people. I give people grace. I give people latitude where I wouldn't have before. I understand that I'm not perfect, and I don't expect anybody else to be perfect either. But I put a lot of stress on myself to try to be a better person every day, to try to be a better father. Forgot to tell y'all, 6 months sober, find out we have a baby on the way. Wow, baby on the way. No job, living on money handed out for paying the mortgage. Shit got real quick. That's when I got into real estate. And it was a very slow start. 3 houses in the first 18 months. Very slow learner. A lot of fog on the brain from the old drinking. But I had this wife who stuck with me, and I had this brand new, beautiful baby daughter that I had to provide for. So I was working 18-hour days, doing all the stuff and trying to make the real estate thing work. Ultimately, it started to click, and doing the same thing over and over and over again finally resulted in some momentum in my business. And for that, I'm grateful. This rehab thing, though, it changed me. Changed the way I think, changed the way I act. Do I think every alcoholic needs to go to rehab in order to get sober and stay sober? No. It is what I needed for sure. I needed to be removed from the ability to go and get alcohol, because I don't think I could have done it without being quote unquote locked up. That was a very helpful part of my recovery. Now, getting out and going into a gas station for the very first time by yourself after coming out of rehab, I'll bet you that 25 times that I went into a gas station prior to going into rehab, I bought alcohol every time. Sad, I know. But going in there the very first time after being sober for 30 days was terrifying. Doing day-to-day activities, going to the park without a beer in my hand, going out on the boat without a beer in my hand, playing golf without a beer in my hand. Like, those activities all had to be relearned. And they felt awkward. Still do sometimes. You know, am I gonna lie and say that every time I go to a party, I don't wish I could have a drink? Sure, I do. Deep down, I wish I could have a drink, but I immediately play the tape. I play that past experiences I have through, and I remember I didn't ever have just one. I would have been at that party, I would have been the last one to leave. I would have been getting arrested. I would have been getting a DUI. It wouldn't have been enough. And luckily, today I can play that tape forward and go, you can't have one. You've never had one. And, you know, for that I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have found a way out, a way that I can live life on life's terms without alcohol. I've learned to live life the way it was supposed to be, right? Not numb. I've been able to help multiple people seek help since coming out and telling my story a little bit. You know, when I first got sober, I didn't want anybody to know. Like, when I got my real estate license, I was so terrified of everybody knowing my past that I actually screwed up a lot there. I should have been more vocal about it from the very get-go. I should have been proud of the fact that I was an alcoholic, recovering alcoholic. That's the other thing too, like, people that are in recovery say, I'm an alcoholic. People that aren't want you to say, well, you're a recovering alcoholic. Well, when you're in it, like, you don't have to say I'm recovering, you just say I'm an alcoholic. So if you hear me say I'm an alcoholic, doesn't mean I'm actively drinking. It means I'm in recovery though. And why this is important for me to share this is there's somebody out there that this is going to resonate with. There's somebody out there that's going to watch this and have a friend, have a family member. Could be you deep down. Could be you in the past, and it just reminds you of what it was like since you've been sober for a while or whatever. But it's going to help someone out there. And I wish I would have shared my message sooner. So you're going to see me being more vocal about my personal side, my personal life when it comes to this, because I need to help more people. I've been through something that a lot of people don't get through. They don't even get to the opportunity to get to rehab because they take their own life. They drink themselves to death. Their liver's shot. Their organs are shot. The list goes on. Since I've been sober 10, almost 11 years, probably I didn't personally bury them, but probably 10 to 20 people I know that were in some sort of recovery, relapsed, and are no longer with us. So I don't take this shit for granted. Every day is not a given. I've got to earn it. And I earn it by doing the next right thing. And doing the next right thing right today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I hope this could help someone help you understand that there is a way out. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, if I can help answer anything to help you or anyone you know, because people were there to help me. And it's my duty to return that favor and pass it forward. I mentioned my daughter. We've sold a lot of houses, had some pretty big real estate accolades nationwide and everything else in the 10 years that I've been sober. But the number one proudest thing I've done in my life is that my daughter has never seen me take a drink. And if I'm lucky, she never will. But I can never say never. I don't know that I'll never drink again. All I know is I won't drink today. If I can put a bunch of todays together, I have a pretty good life. Hope this helps someone. Holler if you need me. There is a way out. You just have to be willing to wave the white flag and ask for help.